Hey, and we're back again. This video is going to walk you through a really important area when you want to estimate accurately and quickly, and it's called work area templates. Now, you don't need to build work area templates to produce estimates. If you're working through these videos in order, you already have all the information you need to start building an estimate. You've built a budget, you've set up your cost and prices for your crews, equipment, materials, subs, and other. You're ready to start pricing your work. Work area templates aren't a necessity, but they are a tool that's going to save you a ton of time over and over and over again when you start building them for your company. So what do we mean when we say work area templates? Work area templates are task-related groups of items, that is, labor, equipment, materials, and subs, that we can save as a group to make estimating faster, more accurate, and more consistent. Let's use an example to better explain what we mean here. Consider an example where you're installing a precast paver patio for a customer. Except for the style of the actual pavers themselves, there's very little difference between one patio job and the next. Every patio needs the same base materials, maybe some geotextile, aggregates, sand, edge restraint, stakes, etc. They also need a construction crew to put it in, and similar equipment, like a truck and possibly a mini excavator, skid steer, or power wheelbarrow. And the description that we write on our proposals is going to be similar from customer to customer, as are the instructions for our crews for installing the work. Now, if you're doing paver work consistently, it doesn't make sense to build and estimate the costs for this job from scratch every time you do a paver patio. So to make this efficient, you can build a work area template. A template is a group of labor, equipment, materials, and subcontractors required to get a task done. In this example, our task is a paver patio. Every paver patio is going to need a crew to put it in, a truck and a trailer, a little bit of equipment, fabric, aggregate base, sand, edge restraint, etc. So what we can do is create a template of all these components so that when you're estimating a patio paver, all you need to do is simply drop the template into your estimate. Fill out the quantities that are specific to that job site, then pick the paver that the customer selected, and you've just shaved about 80% off your estimating time if you had to build it manually. There are many, many examples where work area templates come in handy. Paver work is the example we just looked at. You'd probably have one template for patios and walkways, and you'd probably have another for driveways because the base is deeper. A planting bed template would probably include the crews, the equipment, planting soil, fertilizer, and mulch. Everything except the plant material, because obviously the plant material is going to change significantly from job to job. You might also have a site prep and demo template. That could include all the components your estimators need to think about when you're starting a job. It might include things like time to lay out the site, time to prepare accessways, disposal charges, safety fences or tree protection materials, time and equipment to demolish existing structures, any of the costs that can be easily missed when rushing to get a price into a customer's hand. And remember, you don't have to use every item on every job, but this way your estimators have to remember to think about them, and that's what work area templates are set up to do. An excavation work template could include an excavation crew, and the required equipment and clean fill hauling requirements. You might even decide to include components like conduit in this template so that the time and materials required to install conduit isn't forgotten. Again, you might not need it, but this way it's in there to remind you, and if you don't need it, you simply delete it from that bid. You could even create templates for maintenance type work, like snow and ice control. This simple template would include a plow operator, a truck with a plow and salter, and salt. It's simple, but you can add all three in one click of the mouse, making for faster bid building. Same with grounds maintenance. You could create templates for spring cleanup, for mowing, for fertilizing, and for any other services. Your template will group the required items together, like labor, equipment, and if there's any materials, you can add those as well. And you can also use the installation calculators to help you set standards for how much time or materials it's going to take to get a certain amount, like square footage, of a job done. Even general conditions are a good example for a template. Build a template that includes all the little things that might get missed when estimating a job. Permits, delivery charges, temporary parking fees, temporary washrooms, any of these minor costs which might not always get used but always need to be thought about when you're pricing a job. Work area templates will benefit your pricing and productivity in so many ways. First of all, you'll price your jobs faster. You don't need to add every component manually and figure out the costs every time. You'll also reduce forgotten items on estimates. Your template should have in all the things you need to think about so that your estimators never forget items. This is a great way to help or train or standardize all your estimators within your company. Templates also build consistency across estimators. If the owner of the company is also the best estimator, then get the owner to set up the work area templates. Once they're set up, all the other estimators can use these templates time and time again, and by following the template, they'll be thinking about the job just like the owner would. With templates, there's also less time spent adding and entering data. Whole groups of items get added with one click of the mouse, and you can set up default customer descriptions and crew instructions so that they're entered once. And then these will automatically transfer over to proposals wherever the template is used. Quantity calculations are also simpler with work area templates. In this video, we're going to show you how to set up ratio calculators to help you quickly calculate a quantity. You know that you need X number of tons of sand for every 100 square feet, or so many hours of labor per acre. Well, you can set up these ratios in your templates so that everyone in your company is working off the same set of expectations and doesn't need to keep pulling out spreadsheets or scribble paper to figure out quantities. And overall, work area templates will significantly reduce the number and the cost of errors made in the estimating process. Missed costs during estimating are going to get you from both ends. Not only did you forget to charge the customer for these costs, but you're actually paying for all of the missed labor, equipment, and materials to put it in. You're actually paying your customer to work for them. These mistakes quickly eliminate otherwise healthy profits, and the more your company grows, the more you risk making these kind of mistakes. Now that you have an idea what a work area template is and what it can do for you, let's dive right in and create one. To get to the work area template section, I'm going to start from the LMN home screen. Next, I'll click budgeting and estimating. And then I'll click on the work area templates button to get to the work area template screen. Now this is, or if you're just starting out, it will be, your list of work area templates. To add a template, I'm sure you've guessed it by now, click the Add New button. The new work area template screen will come up and you're ready to start entering. Now before we actually enter a template, just pause on this point for a single minute. When you're entering a work area template, you're not actually building a job or a specific price for any specific customer. You shouldn't really even be thinking about quantities at all at this point. All we're doing is grouping items together. We're not actually building a job yet. When you're adding labor, equipment, and materials to your template, right now you don't know how much you need to add because you're not actually pricing any specific job. Not yet anyway. We'll get to that in a later video. Now when you add a template to an estimate, then you're going to worry about how many square feet or hours or tons you're going to need to get the job done. But in this video, we're just concentrating on building the templates for our estimates. We're not building the estimates themselves. We will put together an estimate or two in the next video. All right, let's get started on our first template. I'm going to start you with an easy template. Let's look at a garden bed prep template. Now, every garden is going to be different when you install them, but every garden also has the same fundamentals from job to job. You're going to need labor. You're probably going to need a bit of equipment. You definitely need soil and maybe some mulch. These items are consistent for every planting job, so they're a good example for a template. For my template name, I'm going to call it Garden Bed Prep. In my description, I'm going to make it clear that this is just for preparation. Plant material is added when we're doing the estimate because plant material is not going to be consistent for every job we ever build. Plant material is going to change from job to job. So I'm not going to build that into my template. I'm only going to keep the things that are consistent from job to job. Now we'll come back to customer description and crew instructions in a minute. But first we're going to add the labor, equipment, materials, and subs that we need for this planting prep template. To add items to our template, you click the Add New button just like usual. Now this brings up the Add Items screen. These are the items found in your estimating catalog. The items in your catalog are going to show up on the left side of the screen. The items that you're going to add to your work area template will show up on the right side of the screen. You haven't picked any items yet, so the right side of your screen is going to be blank to start. Now the tabs for our labor, equipment, materials, and subs appear on the top of the item screen. That's how you're going to add the different types. I'll start with labor. A plant bed would usually be installed by my installation crew, so I'll pick my construction crew. To add your construction crew to your template, just click the little green plus sign beside their name. The item will be copied over to the right side of the screen. And remember, all the items on the right side are the items that are going to be added to your template when you click the OK button. The number of hours they're going to need to do to get this work done is going to depend on the size of the job. So just leave the quantity at 0. Again, don't think about a specific job when you're building a template. You're going to think about quantities later when you're actually using the template to build an estimate. Now I need to add some equipment for this crew, so I click the Equipment tab. The crew is definitely going to need a truck, so I add that by clicking the plus sign. And wherever possible, we want to use equipment to be as productive as we can. I might not be able to use all this equipment on every job, but I'm going to put in the equipment I want to use into my template because this is the equipment I'll use on a lot of my jobs. For my plant bed kit, I'm going to add a crew truck, a mini excavator, and a power wheelbarrow. To add the truck and the mini X, I just click that green plus sign right beside it. But now I realize I don't have a power wheelbarrow in my equipment catalog. No problem. You can add items to your catalog on the fly. There's an Add New button right here on this screen. Click it to add a new item to your catalog. First, make sure the new item that you're adding is the correct type. I'm adding an equipment item, a power wheelbarrow, and yep, I'm looking at the new equipment screen. Now here I'm going to enter my name and the cost information for our power wheelbarrow. To save time in this video, I've already worked out that these cost my company, based on our usage, about $4.50 an hour to operate, so I'm going to skip the whole calculator process and just enter that number right in there. Now my budget automatically calculates the price I should charge per hour, and I'm good with that, so I'm just going to change the units to days because I like to price my equipment by the day for construction work. Now when I click Save and Add, the new equipment will be saved to my catalog, and it's also going to be added to the work area template that I'm building. Now to complete my plant bed prep template, I also need to add some materials. First, I'll add a line for clean fill disposal. There's a good chance I'm going to have to be removing some of the soil that's there. Next, I'll add what we're putting in, and that's a premium blend triple mix soil for planting. And I'll also add a natural cedar mulch, because we mulch most of the beds that we install as well. If you want, you could add fabric or fertilizer or anything else that you'd typically add to a garden bed prep right now. Now again, I'm going to add everything but the plant material, because there is no real template for our gardens. Shrubs, trees, perennials, they're all custom selected for each particular garden. So I'm not going to add any plant material to my template. I will add them to my estimate when I'm pricing an actual job. I won't need any subs for this work or other items, so I'm done my template. I'll click OK to add these items to the work area template that I'm building. When I click OK, the Add Items screen disappears, and the work area template screen shows up back on my screen with all the items that I just added showing in the items list. You can look through each item, and you can even add notes for each description. For instance, Construction labor is a pretty general term when my crews are looking at a job planner. They may or may not know exactly what I'm talking about. So I can add a note, like garden bed installation and prep, so that they know any hours beside this line item is going to be specifically for the garden bed prep. This is all coming together well. You now have a list of all the work you need to think about when you're estimating garden bed prep. But you can also take it one step further to make it even simpler and faster. Let's say we install 12 inches of planting soil in all the beds that we redo. We can set up a calculator that makes it really easy to calculate the amount of soil we need in yards just by entering the square footage of the beds. To set up an installation quantity ratio, just click that little calculator right there beside the item that you want to set up the ratio for. Because I'm doing soil, I'll click the calculator button beside my triple mix soil. Now the screen is going to ask me, how many yards per whatever units are you measuring should I use for this ratio? So we buy our soil in yards, but on a design, the planting areas are measured in square feet. So we want to come up with a ratio of yards, that's what we buy the material in, to square feet, that's what we measure the area in. Now at a 12-inch depth, I know that 10 yards does about 275 square feet. I can go ahead and punch that number in now. 10 yards per 275 square feet. Now that's all I need to do. Now the system can use that number to calculate a ratio of how much soil I need for any square footage, as long as I'm assuming the soil is 12 inches deep. To make that depth clear, I'll put it in the notes there, because I'd obviously use less or more if the depth of the soil changed. Now when I add this template to an estimate, it's just going to ask me how many square feet I'm doing, and then it will calculate the quantity of soil for me using this ratio that I just plugged in there. Now I don't ever have to remember a formula or do a whole bunch of math on a scrap paper when I'm building a price. It's all built in. If you don't know where to find an installation ratio to begin with, check the internet. There are tons of calculators that'll give you a good start. Type gravel calculator or aggregate calculator into Google if you want to find a ratio for gravel. Use an area size like 100 square feet, type the depth, and it will tell you exactly how much gravel you need. Now plug those two numbers in your calculator. Let's say 7 tons per 100 square feet, and you're done. You can find many calculators online. There are mulch calculators, planting calculators, ground cover calculators, and all these can help you create ratios in your templates. You can also add ratios for labor. If your guys can do 10 square feet every hour, then you could create a labor ratio for that as well. However, be extremely cautious when you're trying to estimate labor by square feet or any other area measurement. Square feet can't cover things like what equipment can be used, what the access looks like, what kinds of materials are being installed, where your crews can park the trucks, where they can stage materials, what the soil's like, and all sorts of other conditions. Factors like these can easily double the time required to do a job, leaving your standard ratios winning you all kinds of jobs that you don't want and overpricing the jobs that you do want. It's okay to keep ratios for general knowledge, but there are too many variables in each project or property to put too much faith into a fixed labor ratio. Now that we've got our template set up, there's one more thing you can do to make estimating even faster. You can create standard wording that will automatically come out on your proposals, which are for your customers, and your job planners, which are for your crews. Every time you add this template to a proposal, your standard wording will also be added automatically. You'll still be able to change the wording on each estimate if required, but whatever you enter here will automatically be carried over for you, so you don't have to type nearly as much as you might otherwise. To create standard proposal wording for your customer, click the Edit Default Customer Description link. The default customer description is wording that is going to show up on your customer's estimate or proposal anytime you use this template. Now this will open in a separate window, and you can enter the customer description that you'd like to include along with this template. I'm just going to cut and paste one that I've already created in the interest of... Next, you can do the same for crew instructions. You could enter company or manufacturer installation specifications, and then these would automatically appear on all your job planner reports for your crews. Now in the field, crews could actually have installation specs or checklists to refer to, and you wouldn't have to type it out for every job. Again, I'll cut and paste these for the speed of this video. Another great use for crew instructions is to include checklists of small tools and equipment. Imagine having automated tool lists for your standard job types. Foremen or laborers alike could double check the trailer before they left the yard to make sure that they had all the correct tools on board and ready. With this complete, I'm done my first template. I'll click OK to save our new template, and then that template now appears in my master list of templates available to me for when I'm estimating. I've already created a paving stone template. Let me show you what that would look like. First of all, note that I have two templates here. One's for walkways, the other's for driveways. That's because the installation ratios of the base are going to be different. The deeper base on the driveway templates means that I'm going to need more tons of aggregate per square foot. So I have two separate templates, one for walkways, one for driveways. I'll click on the name to open the template, and now you can see my item list showing on the screen. In this template, I've got my crew that's going to do the work. I have my basic equipment package that includes a truck and a skid steer. And next, I put in the materials. And note that I've added these in the correct order of operations. That way, when it shows up on a report for the crews, it makes sense, actually teaches them the right way to think about a job. I start with landscape fabric and work my way up through the aggregate, the sand, the edge restraints, and the spikes. I've got all my materials in here except for the pavers themselves. Again, I don't include the pavers because the paver styles are going to change on every job we do. I certainly don't need a template for every single different paver type. So instead, I create a template with all my standard items, and then I just add the pavers that I'm doing for a specific estimate when I estimate the actual job. You can also see that I've created installation ratios for some of my materials. For instance, I know at a 6-inch depth, I'm going to need about 3 tons of crushed gravel for every 100 square feet. So I've plugged that number into my ratio calculator tool. When I'm estimating, I'll only need to plug in the square feet. My template will calculate how many tons of gravel I need. I've also included a default customer description. This text will now show up automatically on my printed estimates for my clients. It might include a basic description of the work, the install specifications, and/or your warranties. I simply cut and paste these installation specifications from a paver manufacturer to come up with a really complete list of installation steps and specs that are going to get printed on all my crew job planners. With this much information, there's no excuse why the job doesn't get done right. Now that you've seen how to set one up, let's see how to use one. To show you exactly how a work area template works, I just wanted to jump ahead to an estimate. This video is not going to teach you about creating estimates. That's in a future video. But we can show you quickly how your work area template is going to work out for you. I've created a sample estimate here, and it's ready to put some prices to it. The first thing I want to price is a front patio and walkway. First, I'm going to add the work area to this estimate, and I'll call this work area front patio and walkway. Once the work area is added, now I want to add my paver installation template. At this point, if I wasn't using a template, I'd have to add all the labor, the equipment, and each one of the materials required manually. I'd have to remember to add each one, and I'd have to add each one individually. It takes a bit of time. But with a template, this is such a simple process. You simply click the button to add your template, and your template list pops up on the left-hand side. I'm doing a paver patio, so I simply click the green plus button beside my paver walkway template, and now all my labor, equipment, and materials instantly pop up on the right-hand side. This is the side that's going to get added to my estimate. Next, I just select the actual paver I want to use. I'll just select a simple paver, and I'm just going to select one size for this example so that it gets plugged into the estimate quickly. Now it's just a matter of setting my quantities. For items where I've used the ratio calculator, I can click the calculator, enter the square feet, and it automatically calculates the quantity required for this estimate. For items when I don't use a ratio calculator, I'll just enter the quantity that I need. When I'm finished with all my quantities, I click OK. And now all the items appear in my estimate. I have a complete breakdown of the costs and prices for each, and I know exactly where my break-even is. It's shown here at the bottom. I can also change any of the costs and the prices to better suit this job. If I take a step back here to my estimate, I can also see that my paver work already has a customer description set up for it. The description I entered in my template has automatically been transferred to this estimate. I could modify it now if I like, adding information that's specific to this client's job. My crew instructions have also been imported from my template. They're already set up for me. I don't have to type anything. Now I can print proposals for my customers and job planners for my crews that are complete, accurate, professional, and best of all, fast. You could also create work area templates that were suitable for maintenance type work. For example, I could create a spring cleanup template that includes a crew, a truck, and maybe even a line for organic waste disposal if you charge for it. Your customer description could include a breakdown of the services included in the spring cleanup so that you could build proposals quickly and easily. Or you could create a snow and ice control template that includes the plow driver, the truck and plow, and salt. You could even set ratios on your plowing time. Say an average driver can do 1.1 acres in an hour with an average site and snowfall less than 4 inches. Again, be careful of labor ratios. They should be used only as a rule of thumb and not a hard guideline. And you can create copies of work area templates very easily. Let's say I just completed a work area template for snow clearing for less than 4 inches. But now I want to create another one for snowfalls between 4 to 8 inches. Well, all I need to do is open the template that I built, click the Save As button to rename a second version of the template. Now give the template a new name, click OK, and you've created a copy of the work area template that quickly. Carrying on with my snow example, all the items would stay the same, but because I'm dealing with more snow, my labor time increases. So I pop open the labor ratio, I drop it down to something like 0.75 acres per hour, click OK, then save my template, and I've quickly created a new template that will work for greater snowfall. Work area templates are a great way to systemize your estimating, reduce missed costs, and make sure your jobs are priced right and quickly. Build some templates into your estimating catalog and see if you don't shave hours of time out of your estimating process while also adding thousands of dollars to your bottom line by reducing mistakes, forgotten items, and oversights. Thanks for sticking with us. You're really in the home stretch now. Next, we're going to cover building standard estimates. Standard estimates are like construction estimates. They represent a project and all the labor, equipment, materials, and subcontracted services needed to get this project done. We'll see you in the next video.